participation in that portion of the meeting. This is where we're going to get into the working groups. To set this up, we're going to pass it over to Karen. And as you'll see maybe in the agenda, just before we get into the setup specifically at working groups, we did have a PAC request about public delegations to the trustees. And there's a lot of, I'm going to use a real kind of lame work word, but like a lot of synergies between the work group work and often presentations to the board. And so Karen's going to share just a little bit about that, and then we will roll into the working groups. And for working groups, if you can look in the agenda to see the order we've got. So it'll be health and safety, then the inclusive, and then food framework, etc. You can see it right there. And I'll pass it over to Karen and take my camera off while I fiddle around with Google Drive permissions.
Okay, so I just dropped a link into the chat because I'm not sharing my screen and crashing the meeting. That link leads to the Secretary Treasurer's page of the VSB website. Right there, you will find that the information, the guidelines for delegations wishing to make a presentation to the board. So there, all the information you need for that, including the deadlines for each month's scheduled meeting, follows under that. And every time I've made a delegation, I have followed those instructions. What we have noticed is over the last 2 years, so that actually precedes this particular board of trustees, there have been changes made to the way that delegations happen. And for whatever reason, today I'm not really interested in whether or not I think it's done for good or bad reasons. I actually want to talk about how to successfully become a delegation. And because we've heard from senior staff that they would like to see more people be delegations. So we want you all to consider your voices important. And okay, so here are the things that I've learned from being a delegation. First of all, when you put your request in to be a delegation, make sure that your wording for becoming a delegation is about policy. And anything that is operational, you want to turn into, I want my trustees to do X, which is a policy change, or guiding the superintendent to, in their operations with this policy change. So when you're making a delegation anywhere, a part of what you need to leave time for at the very end is an ask. And you can front load it with the ask, you can put it in the middle, but I would suggest that at the end you say, and my ask is, or our ask is, and then make that ask something that the trustees can talk about. I don't think I've done that successfully in the past. And sometimes I've been a delegate for something that is far too close to my own personal sensitivities. And I do not recommend that in general. I think that oftentimes those aren't the best presentations that a person can make when you're wound up with personal kind of history around something. If it's your own child, then you need to find a way to advocate in a way, or have a partner, a buddy who you advocate with, to give a presentation that it maybe stays away from the feelings of it. That's not always easy. So try to have point form notes made beforehand. One of the things that is having people not succeed at being allowed to make a presentation is that someone else or that person themselves have already given that point of view, and the school board currently is saying they do not wish to hear about things more than once. So when you're making a application to be a delegate, you'll want to look for something that is unique from the people who have presented before you. And I think it's possible that some of this has come out of, I know that we noticed this change really strongly around the time of the SLO program being canceled. And it was quite a few presenters, some of them experts in their fields, who were making presentations that were basically the ask was the same at the end. And we're wondering if that, and then subsequently at that same time, people were presenting around COVID and whether or not they were going to put COVID safety precautions in place. And a lot of those presentations were either for or against, but they were very similar. So the trustees and others were sitting through repeats of the same information. So try and have something that is unique within your presentation, even if you just have to make that part up in order to get your 5 minutes. If you make accusations, they can cut off your presentation. There is this whole meeting decorum thing that you're supposed to behave in line with. And so it is important to understand that they can cut you off if they think that you are behaving badly or making accusations. And I guess finally, and others who've made presentations like Michael or others can help me out here, but my final point is that you should not be making specific references to any staff at these presentations. So you should not be naming a teacher that you're unhappy with, a principal you're unhappy with, and even a staff member at the VSB, because that will not be a successful delegation. It won't be successful in part because they'll either tell you afterward that it was inappropriate, or they will cut you off.
And there's a link to the appropriate conflict resolution path that VSB has. I just posted into the chat. So make sure if it is a conflict situation, you're really familiar with that to avoid just what Karen was saying, and find another way of presenting the situation that would be outside of that process.
And I guess further, if we're going to touch on conflict resolution, if you do need someone to talk to, or someone in your school needs someone to talk to because you are finding that you're stymied, I can receive an email. I can't give a person a huge amount of time because then I would have no time to sleep. But do find someone who will listen to you and help you decide if it is a resolvable issue or not, or how to resolve the issue as best you can, or at least hear your distress. Yeah, I think that's it. Any questions?
I think that's that section, and we're on to working groups.
Deborah's got something to say, actually. And yeah, anyone who's made a presentation, if you have something to comment, please do. Deborah?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me? Yes. I haven't presented as a delegation for a couple of years. But listening to what was being said before about the lack of transparency, the lack of, making themselves available, and the thing about operational versus policy is we saw this with the advocacy against cutting the MAC program, was they would just switch and say, oh, well, it's actually operational, because they would be doing exactly the same thing, but they would frame it in a different way to say, see, it's operational. The trustees can't have anything to do with it. So it's like gift wrapping Jello, right? I mean, you can't have a discussion when things are constantly changing on the other side. And so that I think is a larger umbrella issue that I know everybody here is familiar with, and in all different topics. And it does come from the top. It comes from the top of the staff. And I've seen my older daughter's in first year of university, my younger one's in grade 10. And I've seen when there's been staff that's at the top that's been more open and more willing to talk to parents, it's more open, it's more accessible, it's more like genuinely giving parents the sense that they are willing to listen. They might not agree with you, they might disagree, They might not do what you want them to do, but at least they are going to listen to you and give you a fair shake. And that really makes a difference, no matter what the topic is. So I sort of feel like it's, you know, there are all these rules for the delegations, and everything you said, Karen, is absolutely what I've experienced as well. But you can do everything right, and then they just, it doesn't matter. You've lost before you walk in. So I think that does need to be looked at, because otherwise people are just spinning their wheels.
Yeah, and I think that if we have enough people that are experiencing that this year, if we get enough people, so for example, if everyone gets rejected for being a delegation, or the meetings are consistently canceled, but people are saying they're applying, I think that people should contact us, or if you notice patterns, you should contact us. And at some point we would have a discussion about how, from where we sit, we would, because they've told us, the superintendent has told us that they very, very, very much want delegations to the board. And so if it doesn't look like that, we're going to go by face value on that now. And then at the end of this year, we'll look at it and we'll say, you know what, you guys, you know, you all look like you really do want us, you really do want delegations, or currently whatever you are doing is not reflecting what you told us. And we'll advocate more. So I'm not saying I'm hopeful or not hopeful. I'm saying that we will look for ways to be effective in this. And I think that that's, you know, for me, that's what I've started to say to myself, even about being a delegation. Is what I'm going to say going to be effective? Or is it me having a rant? Because I have done both at delegations. And I can tell you, I regret some of them in my way. Ishi.
Just remembering the policy and governance meeting, and one of the conversations was about delegations and about the policy of delegations only having the permission to appear once, which is hugely problematic for many reasons, because issues change over time. And if you only get to say your piece once, and the issue continues and transforms, it wasn't just me raising it. There were other people. There were teacher reps raising it. There were a number of people. So, yeah, it's just entirely undemocratic to have one chance to speak and never get to speak again on anything that's important enough to form a delegation. So I don't know exactly what I'm adding here. I just that it's part of the puzzle, and we need to make sure that that policy is forever changed.
Thanks, Ishi. Okay, I think we're gonna need. Oh, hi, Julia.
Hi,
Julia. If you can be quick.
Yeah, very quick and juicy. Yeah, because I'm the PAC co-chair of University Transition Program. Yeah, so last year we attended. I just want to echo something from Deborah. Yeah, because we're facing the same situation like for the MAC. Yeah, and we also feel like we're silenced. So yeah, here's the thing: we'll keep contacting and with DPAC. Yeah, I really appreciate all the support. Yeah, so that's what I want to say. Yeah.
Thanks. And we were talking about that today, and we'll continue to work with you on that. I was talking to the past vice chair just about that. So we will further that work as we go forward.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So my second part of this is just to introduce working groups as a concept. A couple of years ago, we started a Black and Indigenous working group, and that was around the time of the SLOs and the presentations, and recognizing that our DPAC board is quite white currently, and it has been, and recognizing that while we do have a seat at our table that is a seat that is held for an Indigenous person, this and other colonial organizations have not necessarily been great places particularly for Black or Indigenous parents and caregivers to be for various reasons. And so in recognition of that, I started a group, but within our bylaws, if we have a committee, the committee has to have a chair, and that chair has to be someone who's an executive. So you can understand that that would not be a comfortable or appropriate situation in the case of a Black and Indigenous working group, if there is no one on sitting in the executive who occupies that space. So we worked around that by creating a working group. Working groups can include parents, caregivers, and others with ties to VSB education. They advise us and also look to have a voice alongside of us, but we always have to remember within the working groups that the elected members of the council are the people who speak, who sort of are, we are DPAC because people have voted us in, and if and so that is an important part of working groups versus DPAC executive. The other reason, or the other picture in our minds when we were forming the working group and then encouraging other working groups, was to make more space at the table of DPAC without people needing to become executives and do the duties of executives while they're also advocating on things that are pretty full on issues that need to be advocated for. So where we executives have the vote, or we've taken the responsibilities of representing the parent and caregiver body, working groups have to accept that, but have to also expect that we will carry forward their messages as representatives of parent groups, parent and caregiver groups that are part of the PAC family as well. So it should not be a contentious relationship between executive and working groups. The work should be carried forward, and so it should be always as cooperative as we can manage within the structures of DPAC, which is a legislated body at the provincial level. So we're trying to bring more people under the fold of DPAC for a bigger, stronger voice. And each of these working groups has overlaps. So for example, inclusive education has overlaps with facilities, and facilities has overlap with health and safety. And all of those overlap with Black and Indigenous working group, which currently is sort of in flux as we gain more members and have members become busy with other things, which is why they're not represented here tonight. They have spoken this year already. And the other group that we are working at, and if people are interested, I really, the plan is to have it up and running by January, and that would be an anti-oppression group, a more functional anti-oppression group than the SLAC group that we had, whereby it's a bigger seat at the table. And we were, in our original plan with the Black and Indigenous working group, was the theory into practice of having a table of people who experience the most oppression or marginalization, or swear word comes to mind, and then broadening it once we got our feet. And so that is what we're doing come January. So that is an introduction. I know that there is an order of, yes, the recording will be available later. I know there's an order to this. Ian, you have the order, right? So I'm going to let you take over introducing the working groups, if you're not eating your dinner.
No, sir, I was just washing a dish, so I just wet hands computer hard. But the first working group is the Health and Safety Working Group, and I think, Roger, you're presenting, is that correct?
That is correct. All right. That's correct.
I'll pass it to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So you guys, I'm going to be using my screen as the my slide deck. So if you want to go to the top right corner of Zoom and where it says view, click speaker, not gallery. That way you'll be able to see what I'm writing.
This is next level. Well done. All right.
Yeah, so top right, or I'm pointing the wrong way for you guys. Top right says view. All good? Are we good? Can we continue? Everyone can see? Fantastic. Okay, so this is a health and safety working group. I talk a lot. I talk quickly. So if you have any questions, interrupt me. Otherwise, who knows when I'll give you a chance. We've been in working for about 8 months now. There's about 20 Slack members, but there's really about 2 to 4 that are active at any time. Our meetings are last Mondays of the month. We meet via Zoom at 7 o'clock. And our email is help8, you can see it right there. It's written down. If you want to join the group, or you have any questions, or you have any concerns that health and safety would work on, just email or reach through Slack. That would be perfect. All right, let's go on to the next thing. So what we're working on, mostly our main focus is indoor air quality. We have other things that we're doing. We were part of the SOGI support, the anti-SOGI rally, et cetera. We were part of that as well. We're working on bullying and a couple other things, a couple other issues, dog park issues, whatever. But mostly our main focus of the people in the working group is indoor air quality. So let's just talk about a couple things. I only have a couple minutes, so I'm only going to do a couple things. We've had a bunch of successes, and we've had lots of failures. Let me get down over here. Most of our failures have been around people just not responding to us. The principals not responding, the VSB not responding, BCTF not responding, BC Fed not responding. So we've had lots of, reaching out and starting to create conversations that people just stop, because indoor air quality seems to be a very, very touchy subject for people in bureaucracies, but not for parents. So our successes are this. So the very first thing that we did, Kayenta recommended this. We wrote a resolution. The resolution is now in your chat. It's long, but basically it's just asking for monitoring and then dealing with indoor air quality to help improve it. And the BCC PAC unanimously passed that resolution when we gave it to them in this spring, showing how much PACs and parents and caregivers care about indoor air quality. And then the second thing is a much more recent one. The Health and Safety Working Group helped Vancouver PAC. Now we're keeping the PAC anonymous because we don't want VSB to swoop in and undo what we've done. Because what we did is we created a strategy using budgeting. What we did is we just talked to a PAC about putting a budget together in their regular budget for 2 air cleaners in each classroom, which was passed unanimously with a very short bit of discussion. I've got a report that I'm going to put here that's going to show you that has all the different things I'm talking about, all the different elements outlined, and all the links to different documents. But what we did is we put it into the budget, and we put that budget through to the principal by just putting it in with all the other things that the PAC was doing for the school, like we're providing sports jerseys, we're providing iPads, and we're providing 2 air cleaners per classroom. And to our massive surprise, it did not get rejected. And instead, we got to put 2 air cleaners in each of the classrooms. And not only did that happen, the secretary saw what was happening and said, can I get one? So we bought one for her. And the maintenance person, facilities person also saw that and said, can I have one? So we got one for them. And then the library has reached out to say, can we have some? So we're actually managing to put air cleaners all through this school. And this was in spite of the fact that this school in particular had tried to put air cleaners in for the last 3 years. Parents had tried donating, shut down. We talked to principal, shut down. We talked to VSB, shut down. We talked to facilities, shut down. So we are super excited about this, and we're hoping we're going to start putting it out on social media, et cetera, that a number of PACs will also do the same, so that by 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now, we have a whole slew of schools that have managed to get air cleaners into their classrooms. All right, and I'm almost, oh yeah, wait a sec, I forgot this image. Oh, there we go, the 2 air cleaners in the classroom. How wonderful, isn't that nice? All right, I'm almost done. So what we found in our group is that action is the antidote, not to apathy. We don't have apathy. What we have is overwhelm in 2023. We have way too much on our shoulders and way too much pushing us down. So what our committee has found, our working group, is that action is the antidote to overwhelm. And we all say, I hear this over and over after our meetings. Oh, yeah, all welcome, including guests. But this is what we hear over and over and over and over and over again after meetings. I feel more energized and hopeful than I have in a long time. Just knowing this group exists and is trying to make a difference helps my mental health. And so we would like to offer that. Here's our action, our call. We'd like to offer that to all of you. So we want more members. So please reach out to us here at Health and Safety Working Group at Vancouver DPAC. Please join our group. The more people we have, the more we can do. And only, Margaret Mead was right on the money when she said, never deny or think that a small group of committed people can't change the world. In fact, it is only a small group of committed people that will. And that's the end of Health and Safety Working Group. I turn it over to the next group. Thank you for your time.
Roger, fantastic. Thank you. I would echo another antidote to feeling overwhelmed is knowing that working groups exist as well, because there's so many things we want to get to, and just really appreciate how much work you are doing. Thank you. Well done. We will pass it, the Inclusive Education Working Group, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember who the speaker is for that one. I apologize. I don't have it in my notes.
It's going to be me, Roger, or Ian.
All good. Perfect. Thank you, Robin.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Actually, before I share my screen, cancel that. There's 4 people from the Inclusive Education Working Group, and we wanted to introduce ourselves and give everybody a sense of the different kinds of disabilities that are represented in the group. So I will start. My name's Robin, and I'm from Mackenzie. I have 2 kids at Mackenzie, one in grade 5 and 6 now, one in grade 2. And they both have disabilities, one visible and one invisible. So my one with visible disability is in a wheelchair, and my one with invisible disability has ADHD. And I will pass to Corey, wherever she is.
Hi, I'm here. Hi, so I'm Corey. I'm also part of the Inclusive Education Working Group. My daughters are in grade 2 and 5. My second grader has physical and intellectual disabilities. We've done some advocacy around accessibility at our school. We're at Renfrew. After a year and a half, we were able to get them to put in a ramp for us. That helped us to access our classroom without going onto the city sidewalk. So lots of important work to be done. We want parents to join us in our advocacy for and spread this around to all the schools. Is Megan here? I'm going to pass it on to the next person.
Yep, I'm here. I'm Megan McLeod, and my daughter is in grade 8 at Gladstone, and she has an intellectual disability. So she was basically railroaded into a life skills program, which is what sparked my entry into advocacy to improve inclusive education at the secondary level. And so that's what brought me to the Inclusive Education Working Group to kind of support those efforts.
And I think the last member is Jacqueline.
That just happened to overlap with bedtime and good nights in our house. So I already introduced myself earlier, but yes, so on the Inclusive Education Working Group side, all 3 of our kids have disabilities. So 2 of them have ADHD, one is diagnosed and one is undiagnosed. The one who is diagnosed, we had to do privately. So navigating that was a bit tricky. And obviously the one who's undiagnosed will have to be the same. And the other one is autistic and also has ADHD. And he is completely unsupported at school. And so our battle is constantly for him to be included and actually meaningfully educated in his classroom instead of coloring on working sheets every day and not learning anything. So yeah, this is, it's been a long time, many, many years of advocacy. And yeah, if anybody else out there wants to come and join us, please do, because we need all the voices. So I'll hand it back to you, Robin.
Great, thanks. I'm going to share my screen. We have a quick presentation. So yes, we are the Inclusive Education Working Group. We are a group of parents whose kids face barriers to education due to their disabilities. And we already have a bunch of different kinds of disabilities represented. And we've learned a lot from each other. I think we've been meeting about a year and a bit in terms of all the different barriers and challenges that different disabilities face. My kid with physical disabilities faces very different challenges in the school environment than and in a 100-year-old school than Megan's daughter with intellectual disabilities. So lots of issues and things to talk about. And so many different situations in the school system, depending on who your kid is and what school they're going to and how supportive the admin is and what kind of student support worker they have or don't have. People are facing all different kinds of problems. Some of our members have started advocating to the board. So we came up with this framework last year, and it, if you ignore the D, spells PAVES, P-A-V-E-S. So P is for professional development. We found that knowledge about all kinds of disabilities within the district is really low, even for people who are in positions of power like admins. So there's a lot more training that needs to be done. Schools, a lot of schools really aren't accessible. You know, you have to advocate for things like ramps, which you would think would be basic for schools. They are not. I can assure you, like my kids' school, it's taken 2 years just to get automatic doors on one door. So it's a long road in terms of improving the accessibility of all the neighborhood schools. And we really think, like any student, accessible or students with disabilities should be able to access their neighborhood school. Often kids, especially with physical limitations, are told to go to another school because they cannot be accommodated in their neighborhood school. So that's a big barrier for sure for inclusivity. We think that there's a good opportunity for the board to have a new vision and a new strategic plan. There's a new law about accessibility. I'll talk about that in the next slide. So it's a good opportunity for the board to be proactive. As we've already talked about in the call tonight, we think there's a big area for improvement in terms of meaningful consultation with parents, and also just what is going on the website. It's not very clear what they will do in a concrete way to support kids with disabilities. So a lot of opportunity there. And how do we evaluate that progress? What kind of measures are we looking at? And the S is for staffing. We're seeing lots of shortages in schools and hearing about lots of shortages in terms of things like support workers, which for some kids with disabilities means that they cannot attend school at all if their support worker isn't there. So that's definitely an issue, and we're hearing more and more about that. I think with every parent that we hear from, it's almost always an issue. BC does have new legislation called the Accessible British Columbia Act, which I think was passed last year, and they're starting to implement it maybe 2 years ago now. So the Vancouver School Board is now required to have an accessibility committee. They're actually required to have one starting last year, but we didn't hear anything about it until this year. And DPAC was asked for some reps for that, but it has not yet met. So we're very curious to see how the Vancouver School Board is going to start following this legislation and what kind of input this new accessibility that they're required to have by law is going to have into their operations. I think our biggest call tonight is for people to join us, and maybe not you guys, but we're hoping you'll pass on the information to parents in your school who have kids with disabilities, any kind of disability, whether diagnosed, undiagnosed, whatever kids are facing barriers to education. We're a small group and we don't want to talk without representing people. So please pass them on to us. And our email is there. It's on the slides, and I think it's on the DPAC website as well. So please send people our way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your work. Also, again, just shout out on getting a ramp. Our school has one accessible door and you can't get into the office and a whole bunch of things. And we have a number of people, including parents, who are not allowed because there is not to come in the front door of our school. And not to mention the other building, which means if there's a disability, they have to move entire classes. So just really appreciate your work. And I know, at least from Lord Roberts, expect somebody to reach out to connect and learn more.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that Corey got a ramp to code. My school got a ramp not to code. So there's lots of shenanigans going on.
Oh yeah, we're still waiting for... Yeah, we're waiting for Rosie's accessibility assessment that she promised us 2 years ago. So we will, but we did say we'd hold questions until all the groups had gone. So I will, sorry, it's easy to get derailed because we want to dive into each one of these things because they're so important. But I will pass it to, I think is it just you, Selena, but Selena to speak about the food framework in next step.
Thanks, Ian. And is it possible to, I wasn't clear if we could have a presentation tonight, but it seems like we can, or?
Yeah, you absolutely.
Okay, can I send you it or can you screen share it? Or
you can share it. Yeah, you should be able to share it.
Okay, I will share it then. Thank you.
We've opened up the access so you can control your own destiny and you don't have to
Thank you.
Yell at me, Ian. No,
be very careful,
Ian.
Ian.
Yeah.
All right. So the Vancouver DPAC Food Framework Working Group, I just wanted to briefly go over our goals tonight, but I'll just quickly say that unfortunately I'm the only member that could be here. We also have Vicki Baker, who is a mom of kids in Vancouver schools and has worked with the Vancouver food policy out of City Hall for a long time. And we also have a representative from Vancouver Coastal Health, Vanessa Lamb. And unfortunately, they could not be here tonight. Vicki had a great excuse. It's her birthday today, so she's busy celebrating. So I just wanted to, I wasn't going to go over all of this, but given what I just heard from the previous groups, I think I will, if it's allowed, I will just have a quick review of the case for healthy school food. Stop me if it's too much, but I don't want to assume everybody already gets how important it is. But the United Nations has established the right of the child to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health. UNICEF has talked about the importance of nutrition for children. And it's, there's so many organizations. I won't go into reading the full thing for each one. The World Health Organization. I'm happy to share this presentation after if people do want to see more of what these organizations have said about the importance of healthy school food, and not just healthy food, but healthy food. Feeding kids healthy food in the school is so important because it sets an example. It's where they learn and they reach young people at a critical age and so on. There are guidelines that the province of BC has developed, and it's just, there's so much. Government of Canada has published stuff on it, and I won't go in through all of it, but it's not even just important for the kids, but apparently, like down the line, 80% of BC's healthcare is spent on chronic disease, and eating healthy and physical activity lower the risk of that. So it's also a huge cost to our province and the country and the world to not have healthy human beings. So there's so many organizations, as you can see, who've spoken about the importance of healthy school food. And I got started on this when my daughter started school in 2005 in kindergarten. And I come from a background of big food. So I have worked in corporate at Kraft Foods, Kraft Heinz, when it was owned by Philip Morris Tobacco. So you can imagine the culture there. It was anything for a buck. And I feel like people really trust that if food is for sale in stores, and if we're, selling it in retail, it must be approved by the government. It must be okay. But it's really whatever big corporate can get away with. And there's so much unfortunate partnering between government, who should be looking out for the greater good, and corporate greed, unfortunately. So that dictates a lot of what we get to eat. And, we're now finding out about sugar and so many things being unhealthy for us. So we have to educate ourselves and look out for our kids in order to help them develop to their fullest potential, and help create a better world. So when Ella started school in 2005, we were shocked at what was being served in the schools. It was Panago, it was Subway, it was a bunch of crap, and not compliant with the guidelines for food and beverage sales that were published in, actually, sorry, she didn't start in 2005, 2015 she started. But in 2005, the province had issued guidelines for food and beverage sales in BC schools. They had mandated those guidelines in 2008. And the Auditor General's report came out in 2018, and the DPAC made recommendations to the VSB in 2019. And finally, we got the VSB to agree to appoint a food framework committee in 2020. And they developed a vision. Unfortunately, they put a 10-year timeline on the vision, which as part of the visioning framework development, we learned that 1 in 5 kids at least comes to school hungry every day in the Vancouver school system. And so it's really urgent that we get kids a universal school food program, and also healthy food for our kids. And to put a 10-year timeline on that, I think is unconscionable. Not to mention that vision statements don't normally have timelines. They're not supposed to. That's for your strategic plan and business planning, so on. But anyways, they did that. And I'm sort of cynical about their rationale for doing that, because 2 of the members have since retired from the Food Framework Committee on the VSB. So they're off, without any accountability for any deliverables before anything is due on this food framework, unfortunately. So as of March this year, and actually as of now, we're still waiting to hear back from the trustees what the next steps are. And we did lodge, the DPAC did lodge a formal complaint about the 10-year horizon, because of the reasons I just cited. And sure enough, after that was completed in June, nothing has happened on it since. The provincial government has given $5.65 million to the VSB for developing new and emerging and growing food programs. And right off the top, the VSB took $1.8 million of that and put it to their general line items, bottom line, to pay for things that they're not managing to pay for themselves, and took that money away from food programs for the children. So we are 18 years and counting into the whole
sorry, Selena,
ordeal.
I'm just jumping in. I don't know if you've changed slides or not, but we still see the first slide. So I'm
Oh,
not sure
I
if you
did
are
change
advancing.
slides. I have
Yeah.
gone through a lot of
I thought you
slides.
might. I was like, I think you're going through these slides. Sorry, I just wasn't sure to jump in.
Not working?
No, the
Yeah,
first
I've
slide's
gone
there,
through.
but so
Oh,
I mean, the information's great, and we're still getting it. I've been able to pay attention the entire time. I just realized. So
oh, yeah, no, I went through quite a few slides.
yeah,
You know what I can do is share this with you
perfect,
afterwards and you can send it out. And sorry about
perfect.
that. The visual is
No,
much more helpful. I don't know why I'm seeing it. I'm, I don't know
who
why
knows? I don't tell you,
y'all aren't.
and that's my experience. I think I saw it in the chat as well. But the information is fantastic. We obviously can hear you loud and clear, and it's coming across clearly.
Anyway, so I mean, again, I'm preaching to the choir here, the people on this call tonight, but it's amazing the level of unawareness amongst parents in general about the importance of kids eating healthy food at schools. And you know, the excuses we've heard, they're in the presentation, but it's like, well, if a parent doesn't want their child to eat school lunches, then just don't order them. And that overlooks undue influence. And they look at prioritizing school lunches for fundraising, which is they see as a PAC's priority, and it's actually not a PAC's priority. And I've heard, like, these are things I've literally heard at PAC meetings. As long as my child eats, isn't that all that matters? And you know, it overlooks the opportunity to shape lifelong eating habits and good health. And lunches are sold at schools just a few days a week, so what's the big deal? And 30% of nutrients are consumed at school. So it's the importance of shaping children, not just literally what they're eating, but the importance of shaping them as well. So there's more, but what the DPAC Food Framework Working Group has settled on in our last meeting as our goals for 2023 and 2024. And you're still not seeing these, Ian? You're not nothing?
I mean, I see the presentation in the first slide, but send it to us and we'll definitely share
I
it.
will.
We'll share it.
Yeah, that's so weird. Just
It was
I'm
moving for a
sorry,
second
because
there,
I'd love for you to be able to see what our goals are for this year. How about this? No, still nothing. Oh, you see it?
No, we got it. Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
yay. Okay,
Rock
well,
and roll.
I skipped. There's a lot of slides. You missed slides 2 to 10. But anyways, here's slide 11. The vision that we have settled on for this year, our vision is healthy, happy children developing to their full potential and helping to make a better world. And our mission is to work with community partners to build support for both a universal school food program so that no children are going hungry, and for healthy school food, which are two different things. So both of those being important. Our goal for this year is to ensure that the VSB's food framework is implemented. So far, since June 2022, it has gone dormant. And that every student has access to nourishing food at school. They develop the skills they need to choose, eat, grow, prepare, and share food through the VSB's school food programs. And that's drawn right from the food framework. And the scope, and I want to clarify that scope, is that our efforts this year are going to be focused on being DPAC's voice at the table to the VSB and the Coalition for Healthy School Food, which Vancouver DPAC is now a member of. Yay, DPAC! That is so cool. So we will now be a voice at the table with that, and they are doing such wonderful work across Canada in advocating for universal school food programs. And yeah, collaborating with other partners. So if any of that appeals to anybody on this meeting, we would love to have you at the table. We certainly could use the help. The more people we have involved, the bigger our scope can become, and the more we can achieve on this very important goal to help all of our children achieve their full potential and to help make a better world, really, through being fed healthy food. and God knows getting food at all, which is a heartbreaking situation for 20% of the kids in our schools. So that's it. I will not go through all the other mini slides that are here. I'll just say thank you, and remember, healthy children developing to their full potential and helping to make a better world. And if that appeals to you, come and join our ranks, please. We'd love to have you.
Thank you so much, Selena. Yeah, we are the only G7 country without a school food program.
Yes,
well,
thanks
thank
for
you.
adding that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, another topic I could go on about for a long time because it's so many good things here, but I will pass it to an everlasting popular rant, the facilities committee, who have done some really phenomenal work this year. I got to sit on at least one of the meetings and just really impressive stuff. So I'll pass it over. Samantha, is it to you that I pass it right now?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Thanks, Ian.
Take it away.
And yeah, I think a few people have heard our rants in the past. But hopefully we won't cover everything exactly the same as we
They're
have
worth hearing.
spoken about
It
in the
is
past.
good stuff.
Okay. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just figure out how to make it big. There we go. Okay, thanks so much. It's great to be able to talk to you all today. My name is Samantha Anderson, and I am the coordinator of the Facilities Working Group, and also the co-chair of John Oliver PAC. And my the vice coordinator of our group, Melanie Chung, is also here tonight, and so we'll be doing this presentation together. So I'm going to start with giving a bit of background of what we're doing. We'll start out with who we are. So the working group we're advocates for seismically safe, accessible schools that have the space to meet modern educational needs. And there's I guess we've got about 60 people on our mailing list, and we have people come in and out of our meetings, depending on kind of what's going on at their school, what's going on with us. But we've got really a good group of people, some of whom have been working on this issue for quite a number of years now. So this working group was initially formed, I think, in 2018 by Vic Canna, who some of you may know. And he got into it because Eric Hamber, the school that two of his kids were at, was going through a seismic upgrade. And that's often how people at the working group get involved with what's going on. Because what we're really dealing with is school buildings and land, and what the VSB is doing with that. Are my slides moving through? Are we on the long range facilities plan slide now?
Yeah, we sure are.
Yeah. Okay, great.
You got the magic touch.
And so at that time, the VSB was developing a long-range facilities plan to look at the overall approach to facilities in the district. This is required by the province in order to get capital funding. So every district has to develop this. And so the working group provided a lot of input into the facilities plan. It's a really nice plan, has a great vision. The problem is that it became apparent that it wasn't really the strategy that was guiding what was going on in the district in terms of facilities. And so one of the things the working group has kind of ended up being is a bit of a detective, and looking at kind of, looking at what's happening in terms of seismic upgrades, in terms of what's being financed, in terms of what schools are being told they're being closed or their land is being disposed of. And over that time, it became apparent that what was really driving the facilities planning in the district was the land and asset strategy, which DPAC obtained a copy of through a Freedom of Information request in 2022. And you can see this is what the entire report looks like. So most of it's blacked out. But it was clear that it was being operationalized. And so we've seen the closure of Queen Elizabeth Annex now, Ideal Mini School being moved, Fleming site being subdivided and the land being sold off. They then, Bruce Elementary was targeted for that. And thanks to the amazing work of Melanie, who you'll be hearing from in a minute, that process has been stopped now. And so this is a lot of what we do, is we look at, we look at the strategies, we look at what's being said, we look at the data that these decisions are being based on. And so what as much as we've been able to identify what's been going on, what is apparent is that the VSB is in a bit of a bind. So we're a big district. We've got a lot of old buildings. We've got 45 schools that are seismically unsafe. There are financial constraints because Vancouver is the only district in the province that does not have access to, or is not able to apply a school site acquisition charge to new development. So whenever there's a capital upgrade, the province puts in some money, but the school district is expected to put in some money too. And the Vancouver School District doesn't have a revenue stream, but it does have a lot of land, and the land is valuable. And so it appears that basically the VSB has decided that the way that they can fund their seismic upgrades is by selling off land. The other thing that we've been doing quite a lot of is, because it was also clear, like the VSB has been saying for quite a long time now, that enrollment is going down. That was true in the past. It hasn't been true in the last 2 years. It's been going up now. And projections from everybody, except for the VSB, that's including the BC Ministry of Education, is projecting increases in student enrollment. And so that's another basis, or that's another one of the fundamentals that we and the VSB disagree on, and that they've been making decisions based on this data that we and other planning entities, including the Ministry of Education, think is incorrect. And so the working group has done a lot to look at those underlying assumptions about the data, and to publicize them as much as possible, to try and talk to trustees. We've also been making presentations to MLAs, to the City of Vancouver, to VSB staff, to parents, to media about these issues. And so doing quite a lot of advocacy work around this. As well as supporting parents who have set up their own advocacy groups for specific schools. So say QEA, the Queen Elizabeth Annex closure, or Brucefield land disposition. And so that we've had some success. So thanks, I think, largely to Melanie's amazing Save Brucefield campaign over the summer, as well as sort of the ongoing work of the working group on all of these issues. The board in September voted to pause, which is a key word here, pause the disposition of land at Bruce and Carleton in order for the staff to be able to look at the changes that have happened in the city around zoning. And so that's kind of where we're at now. We're in this pause, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and there have been new suggestions coming out from the city about things that could be done with VSB land, and we want to make sure that our voices are heard around these issues, and that we are continuing to advocate for greater transparency in the VSB, which is obviously a common theme for everybody, and making sure also that the decisions that are being made permanently around our public assets, because this land isn't the VSB's, it's all of ours, are being driven by data. And so this is kind of what we've been doing. And now I'm going to turn it over to Melanie to talk about what we're planning to do. Melanie, if you want to go ahead, and I'll just keep clicking through the slides for you.
Sure, amazing. Thank you, Samantha. That was great. So I just wanted to tell everyone here that we are changing the world. We've saved school sites against subdivision, which is really remarkable because that hadn't been done before. We brought a suspension to the land asset strategy for the time being. And as Samantha mentioned, it is a pause, but we made our case so strong that it's going to be hard for them to resume. And you know, I'm saying to them, bring it on, because I'm up for the fight again. I'm prepared. I have all my advocacy tools sharpened, and I would be up for the fight if they brought it on. I've learned a lot, and I'm sharing all of my knowledge with the advocacy that the Facilities Working Group is doing. It's an amazing group. We are putting together a facilities advocacy guide to assist other PACs on a regular basis once they have facility issues. We will get out our toolkit and have it all ready. And even if you don't have facility issues, we'll help you with the steps that are needed, because we all know these facilities decisions happen in the blink of an eye. There's no warning. The VSB will decide as a snap to bring on a closure to a school or a disposition of a school site, or even changing the location, shutting a school down and relocating the program, like Ideal Mini School. So it's really important to have to prepare our PACs in advance of VSB decisions. And I have some strategies that I put together to help other PACs prepare proactively in advocacy for their schools. So we are putting together that guide. We are going to make the case for equitable facilities, seismic upgrades for all schools. We gather data and we make our arguments based on fact. So they're fact-based arguments, and the facts really do speak for themselves. Did you know, for example, that 20% of elementary schools have no plan for seismic upgrades? And, you know, we know that our population is going to increase, and we look forward to getting enrollment forecasting methodology data from the VSB, the updates. And we have a list of data updates that we want to receive on an ongoing basis. So we followed that up, and we are going to prepare fact sheets that we can give to our parent groups that we can distribute to the public in general. As well, we can use that for educating the public, and also when it comes time to vote, so the public knows what the facts are. So because some of these issues are really difficult and complex, so we want to make them more easy to understand for parents and public. So we're advancing some education as part of our initiatives. So getting a fact sheet is great. It's a great initiative to help that education and engagement of more people and knowledge of facility issues. We are also putting together a PAC survey so that we can be distributed on an annual basis to schools to find out what the facility issues are. So I feel like there's probably facility issues at school sites, like at Tyee, that our facilities group is not aware of. And it would be great to have a survey sent to schools to find out, are they experiencing issues with like dedicated space for childcare? So we're really looking forward to this upcoming year. We've got a town hall possibly planned in collaboration with some other groups. And we want this to be the kind of year where we can put in these mechanisms to provide a greater framework for our working group in the future, so that these are tools that are used on an ongoing basis for our working group and our DPAC and PACs, so that the knowledge is passed from year to year with our working group, because our members change and sometimes it can be quite fluid. So I'm really proud of our efforts to put everything down so that we can pass the knowledge on going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. So please come and join us. I know it can sound really overwhelming and like we're doing really, really technical work. And sometimes we are. We've got some people who are actual experts in these fields in terms of their knowledge about demographics or their knowledge about planning. But there's lots of roles for everybody in doing this. And we need engagement. We need people with all sorts of skills. And even if you just want to be on the mailing list, just to kind of keep up to date, please let us know as well. And so, like the other working groups, our contact information is on the DPAC website too.
Thank you so much. And I strongly recommend it, to parents on this call, choose at least one working group and go to their meeting. Let's be real, DPAC as a body is a little bit famous for having very long meetings. This meeting's already over 2 hours, and we could keep it going. We will try to wrap it up pretty quick here, and so we're cognizant of that. But is the length of that? But going to these working group meetings gives you an hour, 2 hours, depending on the group, exactly what's going on, of just that topic with a few people, very focused and moving stuff forward, and it's really, really impressive. And impactful. And so, we need the general meeting and the PAC exec meeting, which DPAC's exec meeting, which we'd also love all of you to come to as well, so that we can have that sort of official body and make sure that there's votes and those sorts of things and that official communication behind things. But these working group meetings are really where, like, hey, we should do this. What about this? Here's some real stats. Here's and you can just get into that focused work that really moves things forward. So, most of them are at 7 o'clock, once a month. I strongly recommend you hit one up. And I just, like, to all of you who presented tonight, thank you so much for how well you present always, but the work that you're doing, it's really stand out. So thank you. I'm going to try to wrap. I'm going to say let's aim for sure kind of a 9:30 wrap up. But I do want to just see. I know some people have had to drop, but I do want to see if there are any lingering questions that people wanted to ask of any one of these excellent working groups. Ooh. The view just changed, which is
oh no, I'm sorry.
Sandra,
did I do that for everybody? I'm really sorry.
You did, and it's fun. And I'm sitting in a chair now,
I'm gonna
which is cool.
sit back.
I saw Sandra Nelson's hand come up first. Do you have a question, Sandra?
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you for everyone for presenting. Just for the facilities working group, do you do any work around school yards too, or is it all about the buildings?
Well, I'll take that one. I'm actually doing data analysis right now on school yards. School fields are like one of my key areas of focus because they were subdividing my school field. So I pulled a lot of data when I was doing the Save Roosevelt report, which is a lengthy report on analyzing public space in the city of Vancouver and school fields as it relates to that space and the whole issue of equity. So right now I'm doing a data project with the VSB. I have a Freedom of Information request on spending on school sites, so actual school fields, and to look at the equity in spending on school fields. Like our school field wasn't groomed for 4 years. So we our students couldn't walk on our gravel properly without tripping on a weed. It was crazy. So like issues of equity are really important for me. So that's what I'm doing. So I love to talk about, I could go on for a long time, but I'm going to correlate the size of the school with the costs and the amenities. And I'm trying to produce a data report on that. So, and it's eye-opening when you see the data, when you get the data. A lot of the data is open data. We use the VSB's own data to show the inequity. And we use reliable sources so that they can't question our data. So anyways, it's really cool when you can put the data together and, you know, and use it to open a discussion on questioning their facility policy.
Great. Thank you, Melanie.
Sandra Bell, your hand's up too.
Unmute.
Oh, yeah, there we go. We've all.
So I have a couple things for two different groups, actually. Roger, I was curious about the two air cleaners in each classroom thing. Like,
yeah.
Because our PAC's always running into problems of we can't purchase like equipment for the school that like, well, for gaming grant you can't, right? But, I mean, like how do you get that?
So I mean, so we put this strategy together and we just were like, okay, let's try putting it in the budget and see if it slips by the school. And it did. And the principal, so we found the principal has no control over the PAC budget. And when we presented this idea, someone in the PAC said, but they won't let us do this. Like, we know that they won't let us do this. And, you know, my response is, we aren't under their thumb. We are parents and caregivers. Our job in the PAC is to stand up for what we think is important, not to kowtow to what the administration tells us to do. Like, so even if they were going to say no, the strategy was to make them say no to the whole PAC and to the budget. And then we were going to do other things. I was going to go to the media. I was going to try, you know, doing different things to say, look, on record, they've said to a group of parents, we will not take your health and safety item for the students because why? Like, you know, so our strategy was to push them into that corner, but they never actually went into the corner. They just let us do it. So
Roger, though, this isn't a situation where the parents at the school had the financial means to buy them, right? And so Sandra, is your question about if parents don't?
Like the funding of it, like, yeah, because obviously you can't use gaming grants for
so we just used so basically
equipment. We
presented to the PAC and said, we'd like some of your PAC budget to go towards this. And they were like, yeah, that's great. So we'd had another PAC reach out who heard about this and said, we don't have money like that. We don't have parents who can.
Yeah, that was my next thing.
Yeah.
Like, how do PACs without the funds managed?
So our response to that is that we want to know about those schools and we want to create a district-wide fundraiser. Like if we can go, okay, there's 10 PACs that are putting air cleaners into school and there's 5 more that want to, but they don't have the money. We'll figure out, like, we'll use that as an initiative to create a fundraiser through DPAC or through whatever. We went into this thinking it wasn't going to work. We went into this thinking this was going to be another thing that they were going to say no to, but we were going to try to force them to say no louder and louder. So if a PAC wants to do this and the only issue is that they don't have the finances, then that just becomes a funding issue, right? It becomes a different issue entirely than can we get it done? It becomes, can we just get some money? So that's a, you know, then we talk to DPAC and we talk to the province, and we talk to different places, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And okay, so the next thing I had was for the inclusive education working group, which technically I am a part of, but I haven't been active. So it's not a question really, it's more of a comment that I'd like to get more active, especially considering what has happened this past week. On Friday, my daughter took my son to school. And Monday and Friday they have fits. So Friday they have their art class at 9:20. It starts an hour, no, 40 minutes after, because regularly they start at 8:40, but on Monday and Friday they start at 9:20. And art is basically the only thing my son likes about school. So so I'm like, okay, he has to be there for 9:20. And you know, we take public transit, so it's like you'll probably, oh, she was taking him because I was at the DPAC summit, just clarification. So she got him there a bit early. She was there at 9. And then at 9:21, I didn't answer the call because I was in the conference and I had my phone on vibrate. And then, I mean, it was in my pocket, which was hanging on my coat, so I didn't even notice it. But I looked at the timestamp on it, 9:21. The school called to come and pick him up. He had a meltdown. So this is a big, you know, inclusive education issue, right? Like 20 minutes he was there and they're already calling to pick him up. So anyways, yeah, this is something I want to, I need to get more active with the group and get some help with this. And then it kind of spiraled because then I kind of went into a funk, like, oh, what is the point of taking him to school? You know, and it's like, he's not learning anything. He's not doing anything. And if they're just going to call me 20 minutes after he's there, why? Why bother? And I'm ashamed to say this, but I didn't take him to school all this week. I was just too defeated.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Any help I can get from you, from the group would be great.
Yeah, no, join us again. I mean, to be honest, we probably haven't made as much movement maybe as some other groups because we spend a lot of time on this kind of empathizing with each other and telling our stories and hearing all the details, and they're tough stories. And you know, for everybody from a PAC, these families exist in your school. So if they need a place to tell their story, please send them our way. We're happy to, you know, listen. We can maybe sometimes provide advice, but often, you know, there's not a ton of solutions out there. There's a lot of barriers. And
I think a lot of people,
even support as caregivers is important, right?
I think a lot of people are just like in our situation are just like kind of like, I'm burnt out. I'm done. Like, yeah. So it's hard to get to meetings and things. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
It really is, but it's a semi-support group. So please join.
Most of what we do is on Slack. We've rarely met. So you can also just chime in there if that's an easier access point for you.
I just wanted to add,
and I am on the Slack, like
sorry.
I said. I just haven't been active. Sorry, Jacqueline, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to add that our call outs tonight have largely been to PACs to reach out to families that are in the same situation as our families. And I think actually what we need to do is call out to people who don't have children in the same boat as us, because we are stretched thin advocating for our kids, and we need parents who are not stretched thin to join us to understand what we're going through and to help advocate, because also their children need to learn about how to advocate for children like ours and how to work with, live with, exist with, all those things, children like ours, and to make it actually inclusive, right? Like, so yes, I mean, definitely tell the families in your schools that have children who are designated or who need designation that we're around, but also join us to help us because we are all stretched thin. Like, it's a lot. So anyway. And Sandra, I'm sorry that I should have called on you. I apologize that I didn't call on you to introduce
That's okay.
yourself.
Also, there's another issue there. Like, how do we reach parents in our situation? Like I said, they don't have, they're burnt out, and I don't see them coming to PAC meetings. And how do I get in touch with them? I'm sure everyone struggles with that question.
We've spent a lot of time talking about that, right? Like, it's a tough population for sure. So I do think, people who aren't facing those issues, this is a great way that they can even provide support, is just helping people make connections and find community and do all that initial work. Yeah.
And, we have talked about this a bit at DPAC, and we're not good at it yet, have not solved the problem, though I think tonight is an example of moving in the right direction, as are the working groups in general. And Karen, like, again, kudos for getting them going. But we know there's a significant opportunity for even like for DPAC itself to be better connected with the PACs, and then, as an example, which is not going to solve all of these things by any means, but to provide a better level of connective tissue. And I think the working groups existing and connecting across issues and connecting behind, I think of the work that Melanie did for Bruce School, we want to be in a position to help create a cohesive voice for as many parents as possible. Like, it's never going to be all parents. It's never even going to be all PAC parents. And we're definitely open to thoughts that you may have. You don't have to take on that work, just more like, if you've got ideas, we're always looking. We are planning and thinking as well. But connecting is a huge thing, and connecting parents. We know from every working group has said at least once to me, like, oh, we sent out a thing and we only heard from, like, insert tiny number of PACs here. And it's the same for DPAC as well. And we get it, and we know there's work to be done there. And but the flip side is, we have working groups present or speak, and we always have, like, if we could have just had each one of these groups, just one of them could talk, and like all sorts of parents would be there and listening and curious and wanting to engage. So we're trying to figure it out, always open to helps and suggestions. So
I think that would be really great.